Hi guys, what's going on? Thanks for stopping by. Welcome to my channel where I focus on early game and mid game stuff. Today's video is going to be quite fun. It's going to be quite painful as well though, at least for me, because I'm going to have to do a lot of talking in a very short time. So I'm trying to keep this relatively compact. I want to talk about all the different champions, all the different epic champions that have proper value for progression. So basically I want to talk about my favorite champions. This would be in any category, but talking about them one at a time. I might do a similar video on legendaries, but legendaries is probably going to be far too many. Epics is a bit easier to talk about them because surprisingly few champions really have proper progression value in my opinion. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Honorable mention Hordin, just because I think he's one of the best looking champions in the game. Thanks for that, Plarim. He's just, I think he looks so plain and simple and so amazing at the same time. Right, but let's get into the video properly now. Archmage Helmut. He is actually pretty amazing. We all get him for free from Doom Tower. Unfortunately, too late most of the time. You can still build him. I think he falls off a bit over time. That being said, he's still a great champion. He gives you a 75% chance to place a stun on a 3-turn cooldown, which is absolutely great. And then he gives you further utility by landing increased speed on a 3-turn, increased crit rate, increased crit damage on all allies. He is definitely a champion that can help you through wave-based content, especially wave-based content, but he's also still decent for bosses and stuff. Immune to turn meter reduction, mostly interesting for PvP. Not so much PvE. That being said, he's not top tier, in my opinion. He's decent. Gom, the Faction Wars epic, not Faction Wars, the Skinwalker epic that was just part of the Titus fusion. He's a Void epic. He is a bit better than Archmage Helmut, for example, in my opinion, but we'll talk about him when we get to the Skinwalkers, if we ever make it to that. Then there is not really much to talk about. It was a bit surprising and a bit shocking to me, to be honest. If we say, when we open Sacred Shards, we get mostly epics, obviously, and how few epics you actually want to use, even in early game. There is so few epics that actually have a proper use case and that you are going to want to get to 60. I probably wouldn't want to get Archmage to 60. It depends on my roster, but he's not a definite 6-star. More of a definite 6-star is Stag Knight. He aesthetically one of the greatest looking champions in the game, in my opinion. I mean, he was part of the Battle Pass and Plarium used him to promote the game, so you would think that they would invest some money into him. Absolutely amazing shield, the helmet, just the overall aesthetic. Just great. And his kit is pretty similarly great to his looks. Decreased speed, A1, 2-time hitter, each hit, 50% chance. Absolutely amazing. When you get masteries, you will get that to a 55% chance on each hit, and you will want to do that because his A2 only has a 95% chance to place decreased defense and decreased attack on a 2-turn, for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. Just an amazing skill. You will need this nearly everywhere, and the synergy between this and his A1, just looking at areas like Spider, Fire Knight, and then any other area actually, is absolutely great. He's still a great epic, very good base stats. He is almost a definite 6-star, still, in my opinion. Then we have Giscard. He is the Sigilled. He is basically the brother of Stag Knight because he brings the buffs, whereas Stag Knight brings the debuffs. Increased attack, increased defense on a 3-turn cooldown. And the reason why his kit is so great is because he brings a provoke, so proper CC on a 75% chance on a 3-turn cooldown as well, whilst placing a shield on himself. And he gets turn meter boosted by 15% every time an enemy under provoke or increased attack attacks him. So he can really bring your team together. He can carry you through wave-based content. He still has great use against bosses because he keeps your team alive and increases your damage. I'm a big fan of him, as you can probably hear and see from me talking. Well, also low chance, or no, actually a proper chance of a decreased attack on the A1, but only on a 1 turn. I really like him. He's not going to be crazy all the way until endgame, but he is, for progression, definitely a pretty strong champion. Useful nearly everywhere. You can even use him in clan boss just because of his overall utility. An honorable mention I think I'll give to Lady Annabelle, because she has a lot of healing. She is definitely going to stay alive, mostly healing for herself though. And yeah, Aelfric, I guess, is alright as well, but the best champion from this faction for progression is actually Ursula the Mona. She's void, unfortunately, so she's going to be hard to get, and that's unfortunately going to happen quite a few times whilst talking about these epic champions, that a void champion is going to be the strongest for progression. But I guess that's just the way it is, you know. There is a reason why it's harder to get these void champions. She is so strong because she has one of the strongest AoE revives in the entire game, which is crazy. AoE revives are already a reason to call out a champion to be crazy strong for progression, but this revive is something else. This is honestly a whole new level. This is a legendary skill or beyond legendary. Revives all dead allies 75% HP, then fills the turn meters by 50%, which is also strong, and places increased defense and strength and buff on all allies for 3 turns on a 5-turn cooldown. That's amazing. And she has more utility, decrease attack on all enemies, and then increase attack on all allies. Interesting kit, interesting skill. We don't see that too often. Her base stats are not too amazing, to be honest, but yeah, that's usually nothing that's going to stop her from being a pretty strong champion. That's going to be the Banner Lords. So the only 2 or 3 maybe champions that I really like are Stag Knight, Giscard, I don't know, and Ursula the Mona for progression. Honorable mention maybe Archmage. Then the High Elves. They have suffered, I think, during the last few years, just because they have been pretty strong. Thanasil, Tyrell, Royal Guard, they have all been there from the beginning. But since then, nothing, and Verges, since then, nothing really too crazy progression-wise has come to this faction except for Skaramis. And Royal Guard, amazing champion, still amazing for many areas and for boss fights, but also for Hydra these days. That has definitely helped his value. Tyrell has fallen off, unfortunately. He feels to me a bit like War Maiden these days because his decreased defense is on a 4-turn cooldown. Granted, he gives you utility by decreasing the target's turn meter by 50%. If the attack fully depletes the target's turn meter, the enemy is stunned. That's not helpful on bosses, but decreasing the target's turn meter by 50% can be very useful for bosses. But that's kind of it. Decrease attack on the A1 though, so that's nice. But I mean, if you look at Stag Knight and compare Stag Knight to Tyrell, Stag Knight is by far better. Alright, then we have Skaramis. He is actually, I think, the only one I'm gonna call out who is relatively new in this game. Looks absolutely amazing, aesthetic-wise. I think he looks like a proper elven lord in battle armor. Maybe even like Lord of the Rings-like. I think he looks absolutely amazing. I really want to know what's below that mask, especially because we have that yellowish glim, orange glim down below that helmet of his. And I think he's on point. He's a 10 out of 10. He looks so intimidating. I absolutely love it. And he also has a great kit. Attacks an enemy, steals 15% turn meter. Look for that steal. Look for that steal because that is really amazing. You don't only reduce the enemy's turn meter, you get turn meter yourself, and that's pretty strong. Unfortunately, it's also going to mean that against bosses who are not susceptible to turn meter, he's not going to steal any turn meter and therefore not going to get any turn meter. Alright, then a stun on a very low chance. And then we have attacks all enemies. Decreases duration of all enemy buffs. Great for Hydra. Great everywhere, especially Hydra and Arena though. Those are, I think, the most important places. Also has a 60% chance, 75 when booked, to place a decreased attack. Would be nice if this was a bit higher, but still, always great. Fills this champion's turn meter by 10% for each buff that has its duration decreased. Now this is amazing. This is absolutely amazing because this in Hydra and even in Arena in certain cases can mean an extra turn. And that's very, very strong. This screams Hydra to me. Now, in late game, you really want to cleanse all buffs from the enemies or put out block buffs so that there is no buffs on the enemies, because in Hydra, having buffs on the Hydra heads is really going to make that fight hell for you. That's really going to make that fight turn sour in most cases. But early game, mid game, even maybe on your third team, you know, where you don't have a block buffs champion and don't have a full cleanse, or two champions that can give you a full cleanse, this in combination with maybe Arbiter can be amazing, because he gets turn meter, he decreases duration of buffs, Arbiter decreases duration of buffs, he gets turn meter as well from Arbiter again, and then he places, doesn't attack, places provoke on 100% on a 3-turn cooldown. That's also very, very useful in general content, in general wave-based content, but also in Hydra, where you want to provoke Head of Mischief, I think, I'm not quite sure. You want to provoke one of the heads. I always mix them up. So, yeah, I'm pretty intrigued by him. Would love to get him, would love to play a bit with him. Honorable mention, I think, is Tennisil, just because increased defense, 3-turn cooldown, heals all allies by 25% of this champion's max HP. Still a great skill. The rest of his kit is very bad. Actually, resistance in dungeons by 70. That's interesting. Yeah, the rest of the kit is not too great, but that's definitely an honorable mention. Verges. Before I started this account, I probably would have given him an honorable mention at best, but now I'm pretty sold on him. He definitely stays alive because he's pretty tanky, even though his HP isn't too great. But that's mainly because he gets himself a buff to 10% of this champion's max HP for 2 turns. A bit like, let me think. Michelangelo. He also gets a buff after he's hit. But this shield is for 2 turns, which is super amazing. So this shield is basically always going to be up when you're hit. The problem is, and then he brings you ally protection, increased defense on himself. So he definitely stays alive and he's protecting your team. The problem is when the ally protection isn't up, there isn't much that he brings you, you know. Either there is ally protection and he is a super strong protector for your team, or the ally protection might have just run out and then there is trouble and he doesn't give you anything during that time period. But still, I find myself slotting him back into my teams whenever I have trouble to survive on a team, and he really gets that job done. So he's pretty amazing. Marksman has been buffed and has some pretty crazy damage. And the only other one I'm going to call out here might be Athlon the Golden, just because he's a great damage dealer, and that can sometimes also help with your progression. That being said, only an honorable mention because he does not have the craziest utility next to his damage. He is for PvE or for PvP or also for wave-based content. He can give you a bit of utility because he puts out block active skills, which is actually pretty strong for that. But that's kind of it. He gets an extra turn, buffs himself, gets an extra turn, and yeah, does pretty great damage. And has some more mechanics to keep himself alive. So he's a nice champion for sure. Now, Sacred Order. This one, at this point I really noticed how few really useful epics we have in comparison to all these bad ones. And how frustrating opening Sacred Shards can be because you pull so many bad epics. I think Plarium should really look into buffing some epics. And also buffing them at a higher rate than they are doing right now. I'm not going to call out anybody in the first row. Eothar has done some work in Clan Boss like 6 years ago. And then Mordecai is the first champion I actually want to call out because he is actually really amazing. He gives you an HP burn, 100% on all enemies, increase attack on your allies for 3 turns on a 4-turn cooldown, and he decreases enemy turn meter, fills ally turn meter by 15% each, and that on 3-turn cooldown as well. He is just like, there's not a huge amount of areas where this is very useful, but Spider is so important that he unlocks Spider 20 for you. So that's very strong. He can also be your burner in Hydra. He can help you in endgame against those crazy tanky waves that you have to face in some places. So he's definitely a great champion, and he works in very well in different combinations as well. I have already talked about Gorm a bit in the beginning, and I feel like he's a pretty strong fit to that champion, but I'll talk about Gorm later. Phoenix, great damage as from what I hear. I've never really used him. Then we have Deacon Armstrong. Progression, early game, mid game, late game, unkillable teams. A lot to love about this champion. Extra turns, decreased defense, and then Leech on the A1, which I'm heavily relying on my clan boss team. Honorable mention for Lodric, just because he has a shield on all allies for 2 turns equal to 20% of this champion's max HP. On a 2-turn cooldown. That's pretty strong. That's pretty nice. The rest isn't too crazy. Small chance of a decreased attack on the A1, but especially that shield is pretty crazy. Then I do want to call out Anchorite, just because I really like champions that increase the duration of ally buffs and have some utility as well on the side. And he fully heals a target ally. That's always great. You know, it's on a 4-turn. And then increased crit rate, increased crit damage on all allies. Also great. He is a proper option for things like clan boss and speed tuning and stuff like that. Cardinal, craziest revive in the game. All allies revive, 25% of their max HP are healed, and then boost the turn meter to max. What is going on? Crazy for Arena. Put her in Stone Skin, that's definitely a strategy. I never liked Stone Skin, so yeah, well, still a viable strategy, and she also has more utility, and she can really carry your team in different areas, different dungeons, wave-based content, you name it. Lightsworn, very strong in the past, not so much these days. Not going to talk about him anymore or any longer. Inquisitor Shamael? Crazy great champion for Hydra. And then we have Godseeker Aniri, and again, she is going to be my pick for the strongest overall progression champion in the game. On top of that, she also has solo capacity or duo capacity in late game dungeons. She is an amazing champion, just because of her revives and because of all the heals that she gives you, but also because she has, like I mentioned with the Anchorite, and increases the duration of all buffs on all allies, which is, yeah, that's pretty amazing. She therefore also unlocks unkillable teams in clan boss and stuff like that, and some speed tuning. So she is definitely an absolute beast of a champion. The Barbarians, we have some pretty great looking champions in here. I like the designs overall. However, we don't have too many strong champions in here. Baroth, I think he might be the most over-the-top champion that we have in here. He has some Conan vibes, I think. I like his design, but yeah. Champions that I actually want to call out for progression. I definitely have to call out Haikatun. She is a good champion. We all get her for free after 30 days. And there is a lot of reasons why you would want to build her. Not only that she has increased speed and fills the turn meter, she can also decrease the turn meter of enemies. Not on 100% chance though. And she gives you a small chance, but still a chance to place decreased speed for 2 turns on her A1. And a speed aura. She is one of the best epic speed champions in the game until today. I really like her. There is a lot of areas where you can utilize her. Then we have Farrakhan the Fat. Mainly known as a damage dealer in clan boss, but he can be very useful just overall. He can really take down bosses with his HP burn and 2 poisons on a 3-turn cooldown, and that ally attack that he does on a 4-turn cooldown is pretty strong as well, giving you a small chance of decreased defense on the A1 as well. So I think he is, talking about damage champions, he is definitely a damage champion. He feels a bit like a support, I think, but he's definitely a damage champion. The base stats speak for themselves. Very bad HP, alrightish defense, but yeah. he needs his passive that keeps him alive a bit longer, but he's a very well-rounded champion. I think that fits his aesthetics as well. So yeah, he's a great champion. I think I'm gonna have to give a honorable mention to Huskarl, just because he has a 75% chance of placing a stun and decreased turn meter as well built in there. He removes stuns from allies and brings you an increased defense on a 4-turn cooldown. So he is definitely wave-based content, increased defense, keeping your team alive, even against bosses. He is definitely, you can utilize him. He's not a definite 60, but check your roster, check your roster. And I think that's it for the Barbarians, unfortunately. Oh, no, I forgot Jamarsa. She's actually very important. That would have been annoying if I would have forgotten her. Just because she does not only... Let me talk about her kit first and then talk about why I feel like she's so important. She has a relatively bad AoE revive on her A3, but still it is an AoE revive. A heal for a single target ally, which is decent. And then also, whenever an ally uses an active skill, has a 20% chance of decreasing the cooldown of that skill by a turn. She can really carry you. She can really carry you. She doesn't only revive everybody, she heals your team or one target ally, fills that guy's turn meter, and then also has... This is great utility. This has such great utility. It has a 20% chance to decrease the cooldown of a skill of every single ally. It doesn't have a cooldown itself, so it happens every single time. And the reason why she is so important is because she is part of the referral program. You can Google this and you can refer yourself when you have blue stacks. For example, I think there is different methods these days how you can do this, but you can refer yourself and then just create 3 accounts that you get to level 10. And when you do that, you are going to get 100 fragments for Jamarsa. I might just do that for a future champion training, champion chase tournament or a future CVC, because that gives a lot of points. And so everybody can get her for free basically on day 1. Which is amazing because, like I said, she can carry you in a lot of areas. If you already have an AoE Reviver, you might still consider getting her for the Barbarian Faction Wars, because she is really going to make Faction Wars relatively easy. I'm probably going to get her at some point, to be quite honest with you. Then I think we could, mention Sky-Touched Shaman. She's said to be a very strong support and healer. I can't really say much about her because I've never picked her up. I've never played her, never got her to 60. So yeah, there is a couple of decent damage dealers in here as well, especially for clan boss, but I don't think I'm gonna call out them. So that's the Barbarians, not a faction that's too crazy strong on epics, in my opinion. Alright guys, next faction, Ogarin Tribe. This is an interesting one, I think. Ugo is mostly known for Hydra, but she can be an amazing progression champion as well. I utilized her on my last account that I did with Supreme Gaelic. Mostly known to place decreased defense and block buffs on a 3-turn cooldown, but she brings you much more utility. Leech on the A1, always great against bosses, and then we have a heal reduction, cleanse on all allies, and removes one random debuff, and heals all allies by 20% of this champion's max HP on a 4-turn cooldown. It's not an amazing skill, but it's nice. You can also put her with 4 squishy champions, and if she is the last champion reviving on your team, then this becomes an AoE revive, which is also pretty nice. And she has a block damage buff built in when she's the last living champion. So Ugo, I'm a big fan of her. I really like her. Claude Beast Feeder, progression champion specialist, I guess. He is a pretty simple kit and just good utility. He's not crazy strong or anything, but progression-wise, he's definitely useful. I really like his aesthetics, by the way, as well. I really think that the Beast Feeder theme, I really think with the cage on the back and the missing hand and stuff, it's just, to me, he's a 10 out of 10 as well, just because everything works out perfectly. But let's look at his kit. Increase speed, increase accuracy, 3-turn cooldown. Alrighty, especially when there is increase, when you need increased accuracy because you can't hit those thresholds that you need in early game, but also maybe in later stages, you know, maybe Hydra or some other places, this can be useful. Then we have a shield on all allies, 20% of this champion's max HP. His HP is pretty decent. And we have a heal for the lowest ally, pretty nice. Decreased crit rate, low chance though, can be nice against bosses, just so that they don't crit you. So, definitely a nice champion. I just had to remember what Lawn the Cutter does. Sorry for sidetracking. Siege-Hawk, decent damage. I think I definitely have to call out Skull Crusher as well. He's mostly known for clan boss because of this skill, ally protection, and also counter-attack. But this is an amazing skill anywhere. Anywhere. There's nothing much to talk about on Skull Crusher's kit. Maybe the passive, decreased duration of all debuffs on this champion by a turn at the start of each turn, so a mini cleanse, which is that can be very useful. But the biggest problem that Skull Crusher has is his survivability, because his base stats are decent, but there is nothing in his kit except for this one turn unkillable that keeps him alive when he takes all that damage from all the allies. So you will have to figure out a way to keep him alive, maybe put on a immortal set or regeneration set on him, give him decent defensive stats. You won't need any crit rate or any damage on him anyways, and then you should be fine. But that's the biggest problem with him. Great progression champion. Oh, I misclicked. It's very similar, which is why I'm gonna call him out right here, is Man-Eater actually. Also known, not in terms of his kit, but in terms of the way I would approach talking about him, because he's mostly known for clan boss as well, but he actually has a very interesting kit and has quite a bit of utility. Places decreased attack debuff on all enemies if this attack is critical. It doesn't say for how many turns. That's interesting. So I'm guessing it's just a one turn. That would be unfortunate, but it's still a great skill. If you give him crit rate, then he's going to place decreased attack on all enemies, which is very nice. Then we have fully depletes the target's turn meter, and it's actually a steal. So fully steals the target's turn meter, and that can really help him to cycle through his abilities quickly. And then he has a block buffs and an unkillable buff, which is what he's known for, on a 5-turn cooldown. He is interesting overall. He's not, I don't think you can say that he's crazy great for progression, especially great for progression, but he can help you in other places, and if you take him to 60, you're not going to regret it, because chances are you're going to use him for an unkillable clan boss team. So that's why I wanted to give him an honorable mention right here. Occult Brawler, clan boss damage dealer, Grush. He is actually a progression champion. We get him far too late in my opinion. Everybody should get him a bit earlier, because he gives you decreased attack on all enemies, which is nice in itself, and then he's just a great healer as well. Continuous heal buff on all allies, the big version and the small version as well. Leech on the A1 on a very good chance, 75% chance. So he's just overall a champion that can dish out a surprisingly big amount of heals, actually. I know what I'm talking about. I've 6-starred him, I played a bit with him. He's a decent champion. Not crazy, nothing for endgame, but very, very decent. Right, then Eurogrim, I think, is the last one I want to talk about. And progression-wise, he might actually be, again, the Void. Maybe Ugo or Eurogrim. One of these two is the best one for progression in this faction, I think, because of this skill. This is his main skill, and everything else evolves around this skill, I think. Places 5% poison debuffs on all enemies for 2 turns. Also places a continuous heal buff on all allies for 2 turns. So he keeps your team alive. He slowly ticks down all the enemies with poisons. And he has more poisons on the A1, which makes him a bit more viable for boss fights as well. Heals on the A2, and then speed, aura on his aura. So yeah, good substats, main base stats. Good base stats. Speed could be a bit better, but he's a decent champion, and he can solo some stuff as well. Let us go on to Lizardman. There's nothing that I really want to call out here, so I'm just gonna go for some honorable mentions. I think Aox can be a decent support. Not crazy, but he can help you. Check his kit if you want to. Jarak used to be crazy strong. These days fallen off a bit, and be careful. He still has ally protection, increased defense, but it's on a 4-turn cooldown, and also his passive really loses its touch when you go against Affinity Clan Boss, because the Clan Boss hits you 4 times off, I think, in a row, and this only triggers when an ally loses 20% of their HP in a single hit. So against Affinity Clan Boss, he is really not as strong as you might think. Another honorable mention would be Korgan. Decent. And then Scathix, actually, you could use as well. Stealing buffs from the enemy on the A2, and then we have a block debuffs and a shield buffs on all allies for 2 turns, granted on a 4-turn cooldown. So, and a decreased speed, low chance for 2 turns. So he is decent. Just check your roster. Don't forget about these champions that I just mentioned. They're not crazy great, just don't forget about them. Did I mention that Venomage can solo some stuff? Broadmoor is the reviver, mostly for faction wars though. Nothing to write home about there. Again, it is amazing to me how many epic champions are just trash these days, actually. And probably always have been. Because you just don't want to put the resources into them, because the use cases are just very rare. Very similar with this faction. Scabrius, decent for clan boss. Other than that, Hophoris is the faction war reviver, not really anything great apart from that. Steel Skull used to be strong for clan boss, has fallen off. Fane, strong damage dealer, both is actually interesting, because again, we have increases the duration of all ally buffs on a 3-turn cooldown, which is nice. Decreases accuracy of all enemies, which can be nice when you are relying on some resistance on your team, for example. And then we have removes 2 random debuffs from all allies, heals them by 10%. Nice skill. A mini cleanse also places increased accuracy on all allies. Now, I'm never a big fan of increased accuracy, to be quite honest. It can help you in some other areas, but it's not going to be reliable. When the increased accuracy isn't up, then you might lose out on placing some of the most important or the crucial debuffs that you try to place on the enemies. That being said, the increased accuracy can be increased, or the duration can be increased by the A2, so there is some nice synergy there, and I thought I'd call him out. Also, I love the aesthetics. I am definitely a aesthetics kind of guy, you know. I definitely like to look at the champions, and I guess there is always a chance that I'm a bit biased just because I think that they look amazing. But yeah, both still, yeah, at least there is a case to be made that there are certain areas where he can be useful. And then, last but definitely not least, we have Gom. Honorable mention to Campions being a strong damage dealer. Frenzy can do some damage as well, I think. But Gom might just be, he's relatively new, and he might just be, in my opinion, the strongest overall support champion that you are going to find in this faction. Yeah, actually he is. He definitely is. He was part of the Titus fusion. I'm very happy that I was able to fuse him on this new account. Just barely was able to fuse him on this new account, because he's pretty amazing in my opinion. Let's start with the strongest skill. He brings you a decreased turn meter on allies by 15%, and then has a 75% chance to place a stun on all enemies on a 3-turn cooldown. That's an amazing skill, especially when you look at it alongside his A2. Increased speed on all allies for 2 turns, also places a continuous heal buff only on a 1-turn, but it's on a 3-turn cooldown, and that's just great utility next to an AoE stun and decrease enemies' turn meter. Then we also have a 50% chance of placing a leech, and a 50% chance of placing a turn meter, a heal reduction debuff, meaning that this really makes him viable for Fire Knight as well, next to just overall wave-based wave utility, and also huge utility in Spider, in my opinion. Especially because of his passive. Whenever an ally is attacked, fills this champion's turn meter by 5%. once per attacked ally. So when there is an AoE from the spider, for example, once per attacked ally, that AoE is going to give you at least 20% turn meter. When the spiderlings start attacking and you want to get back to your stun, your 75% stun, then that is also going to give you 5% turn meter every time a spiderling, an enemy spiderling, is going to attack you. So that's pretty great. His space stats are not amazing, but the speed is alright, and it is going to be enough to make him survivable enough. So I'm a huge fan of Gom Yellowhand for overall utility, and I'm probably going to be biased on him for the rest of my life, just because he is very likely going to unlock Spider 20 for me on my account, and that is such an important area, because we all want to get those accessories to improve our champions' builds. Alright, that's going to be it for the Skinwalker faction. Let's go to Orcs next. Orcs is a bit more stacked, I think, and there's a few more champions that I want to talk about. An honorable mention goes to the old Hermit here. Increase attack on all allies, feels the turn meter of all allies by 20%. Useful in arena, useful anywhere. A revive, granted only 2 allies, so that means it's mainly useful for faction wars, but he has some utility overall. Tagore, on the other hand, has not only a little utility overall, I think he might just be the strongest progression epic that we have in the entire game. I'm a huge fan. I've played with him a couple of times. He brings that famous AoE revive that gives you so much utility and can really carry your team, and he gives you so much utility alongside that AoE revive. It's a bit busted. It's a bit crazy in my opinion, but I like it. I like it. Revives all dead allies 30%. Also places a shield buff on all allies for 2 turns equal to 20% of this champion's max HP. That shield, he places that outside of revive situations as well. 5-turn cooldown, but he's going to be relatively quickly. Good base stats. Could be a bit more defense, but that's fine. He attacks all allies on a 3-turn, places increased speed buff on all allies, and heals all allies by 15% of this champion's max HP. What a great skill alongside that AoE revive. It's going to guarantee you a huge utility, even outside of revive situations. And then you have increased defense, 2-time hitter, increased defense buff on the ally with the lowest current HP. That's also very, very nice, especially for progression and in campaign progression, dungeons, arena, everywhere. That can really save your bacon. And we have a passive, as if this wasn't enough. We have a good aura, 25% HP in all battles. And we have the passive, as if it wasn't enough, decrease the damage received by allies with 50% or less by 10%. So whenever an ally drops low on your team, he doesn't only potentially give them increased defense, he doesn't only give them increased speed and heals them, shields them, revives them, he also reduces the damage that that ally receives by 10%. I mean, you know, I was talking about the Claude the Beast Feeder being a simple but overall useful champion. He looks like a chicken next to Tagore, like a hamster, like a guinea pig, like a very little hamster, in comparison to Tagore just being a crazy beast for progression. He is one of the, I think he might just be the strongest in the entire game. Zergala, good damage. And then we have Vrask. He still dishes out pretty good healing. Turn off his A2, just use his A1 and give him crit rate and a lot of HP, and then he is going to heal with every single turn, every single crit that he does. He's going to heal for your entire team for pretty crazy amounts. Sandlashed Survivor. I have a personal weak spot for this champion, which is why I'm going to mention her, but she is also a very good champion. Increased duration of all ally buffs, always great. And then we have a Provoke granted on a low chance and a self-heal on the A1. But the reason that she's actually great is the utility that you get from this. Born Survivor places an ally protection buff on all allies for 2 turns when an ally HP drops below 50%. Also places block damage buff on this champion. That block damage can really save your bacon in clan boss especially. But the ally protection is also, I didn't really understand this in the beginning when I first got her. I had her on one of my first accounts actually, and she really grew on me, especially when I saw, I think it was a video by the HH Gaming Network. Seth was talking about her and how AoE attacks actually work. When you see an AoE attack, you feel like everybody's getting damaged at the same time, but that's not the case. And that's also why Seeker and his increased defense is so strong. It's actually, champions are getting damaged one by one. So when one ally drops below 50%, all of the other allies are going to be protected by that ally protection from Sandlash Survivor. And that makes this really strong in thinking about that. That makes this ability very, very strong because the ally protection is only going to come on when it's really needed. And when it's needed, make sure that your most beefy champion is relatively high in your team order. So he is like the first champion maybe in your team. Might even be Sandlashed Survivor, by the way. So that when she drops below 50%, then everybody else gets healed, and she has a pretty great aura as well, or a decent aura. So I definitely have a weak spot for her. I would love to get her and just play around with her in Clan Boss again a bit. Just to, I guess, I really like her and I feel like she's strong, but I'm not 100% sure. So it would be nice to actually check her value once more and see if she's still holding up these days. All right, Seer, obviously the craziest damage dealer in the game up to this day. And I also want to mention Lyborga. I didn't really know her, but checked her kit and I really liked it. Yeah, increased defense, increased attack on all allies, and then a lot of poisons and poison sensitivity on the enemy. So she can be very strong for Clan Boss, I think. I liked her kit. Don't like her design, but I liked her kit. Guys, I just noticed I forgot to talk about another epic champion in the Orc faction. I think Orc faction is relatively strong, which is nice to see. We didn't talk about the Duck. Duck the Pierced. He is very similar to Stag Knight. He gives you an AoE attack on a 3-turn cooldown with decrease attack AoE and decrease defense. Granted, this needs to be a crit in order to place the decreased defense though, but he is a defense-based champion and has nice defense, so he's going to give you a little bit of damage as well when you put crit rate on him, so that's going to be useful. Weak hits are definitely going to be a problem, but they are always a problem, I guess, even for the mighty Stag Knight. Duck the Pierced is not going to worry about weak hits on his A3 though. Places a provoke debuff for 1 turn on a target enemy, so that is going to be a guaranteed provoke, and then also has a 75% chance of placing a provoke debuff on 2 more random enemies, which is pretty great, because this can really, if there is synergy in the enemy team, this can really destroy that synergy in Arena, for example. And even if there is no synergy, like it is in wave-based content and enemies are just randomly doing some random stuff, then this is still going to reduce the damage that the enemies do. It's going to reduce the utility in the enemy team, just because enemies are not going to use their skills, but only the A1. So this can really help you against wave-based content. And then we have the A1, 40% chance on each hit to place decrease accuracy. This is nice. He is viable for Fire Knight, and also decrease accuracy can be nice in some niche situations. But here we are right where I want to talk about Stag Knight again, because this is the argument that this is why I want to make an argument that Stag Knight is a bit better than Duck the Pierced. Decrease accuracy is relatively niche, whilst decrease speed is very, very strong. The A1 of decreased speed can even be utilized in Hydra, but mostly Fire Knight and Spider come to mind. Especially Spider, one crazy important area, and the decreased speed can really help you. And in comparison, decrease accuracy, like I said, is relatively niche, and provoke is nice, but it is not really the biggest thing that you need on your team, because you're usually not going to have trouble against waves, you're going to have trouble against the bosses. At least usually. In some situations, this provoke can really make a team work, but usually it's more the decreased speed that you look for on Stag Knight, which is why I think he's just a bit stronger. All right, that's it for the Orc faction. That's it for the Galian Alliance, or the Galian pack. Let's go for the Corrupted Alliance. All right, guys, let's talk about Demon Spawn next. Interesting faction, I think. Allure definitely has to be mentioned just because her A1 is mostly known for Fire Knight and for Dark Fae. But you can utilize this in Spider actually, which is crazy. Just one hit on the Spider is going to decrease the turn meter by 25%. And this actually also has use case against waves, which is crazy. Akoth, if you pull him, I think I do have to mention him just because he will give you an HP burn on all enemies in the Spider's Den, which is amazing. So I definitely do have to mention him, I think. I'm not quite sure if that was him, but I think he can also... he can solo the Spider, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm not quite sure. Don't quote me on this. Check him out if you wanna see what he can do. Then we have Nazana. I think she's sometimes forgotten. She actually puts out an ally protection on a 3-turn cooldown and a huge shield on herself. Also has a 75% chance AoE to place decreased attack, and she has an AoE on her A1, which always gives you stun set potential. So I think she is sometimes forgotten. Achak. Here we are with, well, A-tier support, not S-tier, but an A-tier support, because he gives you a freeze most of the time, because most of the time the attack of the enemies is going to be higher than their defense. And he gives you a 90% freeze chance on a 3-turn cooldown, and his passive is what makes him really crazy, because there is a few champions that can give you proper CC, but he fills the turn meter of all allies by 10% every time an enemy under freeze debuff gets a turn. That is huge. That's so much turn meter manipulation. That's really, really strong. Also, heals all allies by 5% of their max HP every time an enemy under the HP burn debuff takes a turn. So, just so that you can see that depending on which debuff you land, you will get utility every single time. And then he also gives you a bit more utility on the A2 and also on the A1, but that's not too crazy. The real crazy thing is this A3 in combination with his passive. Then we have Tarshon. I don't really think he's amazing. I thought I'd mention him though. So he gives you an increased defense on a 3-turn and some other stuff. Dur, Faction War, Reviver, not really useful for anything else. I do want to talk a bit about Skimfos because I really like this guy. He looks a bit surprised that he's a demon. I think yeah, I don't know why, but he doesn't really look evil. He has a 2-hitter on the A1. First hit, decreased speed, 45% chance. Second hit, 45% chance to decrease the target's turn meter 10%. It's nothing too crazy. It's alright. Then comes the interesting part. So he has a 100% chance of placing decreased attack on an AoE. That's nice. After attacking, transfers all debuffs, except for crowd control stuff, from all allies to this champion. That, in the beginning, I didn't like. It's a full cleanse of your team, but he gets all the debuffs. So that's a problem, I thought. But then on his A3, he transfers all debuffs from this champion to a target enemy, and then steals 100% of the target's turn meter if this attack is critical. So he will obviously need crit rate, but he's a damage dealer anyway, and one that gives you crazy utility. So let's check this again. Decrease attack guaranteed on all enemies. Also guaranteed stealing turn meter on a 3-turn cooldown. Pretty amazing, and all his like his A2 is also on a 3-turn. Pretty great. Then full cleanse of your team as well. I mean, he might die between skills just because he's too overloaded on debuffs. Or there might be, you might cleanse your team with another champion so that he doesn't transfer the debuffs. But still, most of the times he is going to transfer all debuffs to an enemy, which is super useful. And his passive actually makes sure that he stays alive, even in Spider when you have crazy amounts of poisons on you, because he has taken all the poisons from the allies upon himself. He heals by 5% every time or for each debuff on this champion at the start of each turn. So you won't need to worry about poisons. They are not going to kill him. Also, he self-buffs a bit when there are a lot of debuffs on him. What an interesting champion, I think. Super interesting champion. Right. I would love to get him and try him out, to be honest. Undead Horde. That's an interesting one, I think. Gorgorab. AoE revive, bad one, but still. And then we have some utility with increased attack and filling the turn meter of all allies by a bit. That can be very useful. Then we have Seeker. So he is like AoE Revive, always guarantees that you are in my list, basically. Then we have Seeker. This guy though, Gorgorab is decent. Seeker is absolutely amazing in my opinion. Fills the turn meter of all allies by 30%, places increase attack buff on all allies. So far so good. Then we get an extra turn, making this a 2-turn cooldown, giving you a ton of turn meter, which is absolutely amazing, as well as a provoke on the A1. It doesn't say that on this skill, but it's actually a provoke 50% on each hit. So that's a very high chance to place a provoke, which is very strong. And then we have increased defense. Heals this champion by 20% HP and places increased defense buff on all allies for 2 turns when hit with a critical hit. So this is a similar case to Sandlashed Survivor. AoE attacks don't hit all at once, they hit one by one. And so when you put Seeker in the first spot in a team and he gets a crit hit, then everybody gets increased defense. This is mostly useful in Arena, not really in any other places, because there is so little crit rate and all the bosses and all the other areas. But this is very interesting, just fun for a Go Second team. And imagine him alongside Sandlashed Survivor, for example, in a team, being with Seeker being in the first spot. He also gives you an ally defense in Arena by 30%. So that's just something fun to play around with, I guess. So yeah, I would love to get a Seeker. Preferably in combination with Sandlashed Survivor. Then there's not too much to talk about. Husk, very similar to Royal Guard, bit different, but still AoE enemy max HP hit. Very strong for Hydra. Then let's see, there's not too much to talk about here. I think Mausoleum Mage is definitely great, giving you increased crit rate. Not too great. That used to be a decent buff in the beginning of the game. These days it's not really, because everybody's crit capped anyways, but he gives you increased defense on a 3-turn and places the block buffs on all allies for a turn. That can be useful in Clan Boss, the block buffs for a turn, making you affinity friendly, but especially increased defense on a 3-turn is always nice. And then we have a heal and removing all debuffs from all allies on the A3, which is also pretty great. So he is definitely somebody that you need to look out for, or need to have him in mind when you need an increased defense champion. Zelotar, he used to be strong, still decent for faction wars, is very much a support, not too great though. Vogoth is interesting. Vogoth gives you a proper provoke, and his passive, whenever this champion is attacked, heals all allies by 50% of the damage he receives. So when you stack him with a lot of HP and he gets a 20,000 HP hit, 20,000 damage hit, then everybody else is going to get healed for 10,000 HP. That's pretty nice. He's an interesting champion, makes up for interesting comps. Anax, good clan boss champion. These two voids, really nothing to talk about there in my opinion. Let's move on to the Dark Elves. And this was a bit surprising to me. I thought there were stronger Dark Elf epic champions, but Captain Tamalia, increased defense on a 3-turn, always great, alongside a heal, and then you get an ally protection on all allies on a 4-turn, but still a strong support champion, definitely interesting. Kaden, Faction War Reviver, Dark Kale, good damage dealer for Clan Boss, and stuff like that. I think that's just about it. Crimson Helm, decent, but not too great. We definitely have to talk about Sylar and Madame Ceres though. Sylar, mostly amazing because of decreased speed, and decreases the turn meter of all enemies by 40%. 40%, that's pretty substantial. That's pretty substantial, especially when you think about, or when you look at the fact that enemies usually have less speed than you, so the 40% becomes even more potent. When you decrease 40% of their turn meter and you have doubled the speed of the enemies, then that really becomes a lot all of a sudden. And then we have 2 AoEs, which is also nice. Decrease accuracy on the enemies can be nice when you are looking for a resistance team. And then we have an AoE on the A1, which is just generally useful. And Madame Ceres, just known as one amazing cleanser. Actually, yeah, stripping the enemies of buffs. And then Here we go. Stripping the enemies of buffs and then putting out decrease attack and also decrease defense on all enemies. So she's just known as a crazy arena champion, but has use cases everywhere in the game, actually. Night Revenants, this was also interesting to me because I had to, like, when I checked on this faction, I had to call out quite a few people the first time I made this video. Miscreated Monster, he is a progression monster. Giving you a stun, 50% chance only, but places a shield buff on all allies for 3 turns, and this is on a 3-turn cooldown, equal to 25% of the damage inflicted. The more enemies you have, the more damage you will do, and this can hit decently hard. This can hit, for an HP champion, this certainly hits very hard, and that means that you are going to get a very beefy shield, especially in Spider. But you can even use him in Arena. You can definitely use him in Arena, but it's even going to help you in Clan Boss in the beginning. Also because he has an ally protection buff on all allies except this champion for 3 turns on a 4-turn cooldown, and heals this champion, places a continuous heal buff on this champion. So he heals himself for a lot, gives himself continuous heals, gives ally protection on everybody else, has an absolutely amazing A2, and the A1 also has a chance to stun, has a 50% chance of placing a decreased defense debuff for a turn if the stun is placed right, so that's very conditional. Then we also have a passive. This is a bit more for PvP, but yeah, he's just a great progression champion, can carry you through so many areas. Sinesha, decent healer, also does good damage alongside Skullcrown, that's something to consider. Then we have Doom Priest. She has a very bad kit overall. Increased attack on all allies is alright. And then her passive really saves her from being just food. Heals all allies by 7.5% HP. Removes 1 random debuff from each ally at the start of this champion's turn. That can just be so useful, just in so many areas. I'm heavily utilizing the passive from Tuhanarak, which is pretty similar. The heal is nice, but removing a debuff at the start of this champion's turn, when speed tuning, that can really help, but it also helps you in general, and the heal is very nice. So she's a better support than you might think when you first read her kit. I thought her aura was decent, but then I saw it's only for Force champions. I don't know what that is about. Plarium maybe change that at some point, you know. Sepulchre Sentinel, she's known for increased defense, block buffs, mostly known for Clan Boss. Also has as a passive that has a 50% chance to block damage, but that's, for me personally, I've never liked her all that much. Small chance of decreased attack on the A1 as well. I've never liked her that much just because this is too random. Sometimes your allies are protected by her, sometimes they are not. And when you want consistent Clan Boss damage, then you can't rely on this. You can definitely rely on this when you speed tune her properly, so she's still a decent champion, so that's why I'm mentioning her, but I wouldn't rely on her passive too much. Wreck the Draft, absolutely amazing. Giving you Perfect Veil, just a lot of healing in general. A revive alongside that, small chance of decreased attack. She's mainly a crazy reviver and a crazy healer, a decent reviver, and she puts out Perfect Veil, which is very nice, and also can increase some resistance on your team. So she is definitely an amazing champion. She's a bit like the unholy sister of what's her name? What's her name again? Godseeker and Aniri. Right. I really like Wreck the Draft. I'm utilizing her quite a bit. Thylacia, decent for Hydra. Apart from that, Malkith, he can increase the duration of ally buffs. That's always nice, but I don't really know where that pairs well with reviving 2 random allies. That's a bit weird. Skullcrown, like I said, good damage dealer. And then we have Golden Reaper. Me personally, I've definitely overlooked her a bit. Places increased speed and boosts turn meter by 20%. It's a bit like Haikatun. And then we have attacks all enemies, 75% of placing a decreased attack. That's very nice. Decrease the turn meter of each target by 20% if they are not under decreased attack. So that's a very nice skill. Unfortunately, it's not on a 3-turn cooldown, but next to the utility from the A3, that's very useful. And this is also nice. Just a nice perk, a nice extra A1 has a 30% chance of decreasing the cooldown of a random ally skill by 1 turn. It's just a very small perk because it's 1 ally, but still, you know, we'll take it. She is decent. I don't know if I would prefer her over Haikatun though. Probably depends on roster and if I have decreased attack anywhere else. Whisper, crazy damage for Hydra. And then we have Sabitha. Dawncaller Sabitha. I think she looks decent, but I think there's just something missing. The aesthetics are nice, but that looks a bit like the base model and you could have made more out of her, especially because her kit is pretty nice. Heals the ally with the lowest HP by 10%, that's always alright. Increase defense, increase attack on a 3 turn, that's very nice. And then revives an ally, 25% HP and 100% turn meter, which is pretty strong. Them going immediately after the revive is nice, also places block damage buff on that ally for 2 turns, making sure that that ally takes the turn and then has the block damage for 1 more turn after using an ability, and there is the chance of healing that champion back up, which is very nice. And then whenever this champion revives an ally, decreases the cooldown of 1 of this champion's skill by a turn, making this either this a 3 turn, which is very nice, or this one a 2 turn, meaning that there is going to be a increased defense. I mean, only in that period after the revive, but meaning that the increased defense is going to be up all the time, basically. I really like Sabitha, I do have to say, but like I said, I have a weak spot for for champions that I feel like have good utility and decent support skills. All right, down to the last 3, the Nyresian Union. All right, Dwarves, Shadowkin, Sylvan Watchers. I really like these factions. I think they are very creative and they have great designs in there. So let's get right into it. Okay, progression. Grizzle Jarl, definitely useful. Increased defense, 3 turn cooldown, always great. In addition, he gives you block buffs and an AoE decreased attack, 100%. That's very, very nice. He's just a decent support for that and can help your team very much when you need that buff and that debuff. And I didn't even mention the block debuffs, but it's only for a turn. Then Cornelia for Arena maybe. Rearguard Sergeant used to be absolutely amazing for Clan Boss. She still has utility there. She also gives you an AoE decreased attack, not 100%, but still. And she gives you ally protection on a 3 turn cooldown, which is very nice. It's a bit weird that the continuous heal she places on the same skill as on all allies except this champion. It's great for everybody else, but she really needs to stay alive with that ally protection, you know. She's great, got great base stats though, but so that's going to help, and she has a heal on the A2. Still, it would be nice if she had the continuous heal on herself as well. You will have to build her relatively beefy. Ooh, I didn't notice. A second champion that has Force Ally Aura. That's quite interesting. Doom Priest? I think that is her name, right? Doom Priest has a Force Ally Aura as well. Very weird, very weird. There's 2 champions in this game. Interesting. Geomancer, best damage dealer in the game, so he's also going to be great for progression. I just have to mention this. He is the best boss killer, the best epic boss killer in the game. Isbel Rockbreaker Melga is interesting. She is a very decent progression support as well. Love the helmet. Not really, but I just noticed it looks fun. She gives you, usually she would just be mentioned as the faction support, the faction war reviver, because there is 2 random ally revive and it's not a great revive. But she has this skill on the A2, on a 3 turn cooldown, places a shield buff on all allies, and also places a continuous heal buff on all allies for 2 turns. That's just great utility. That can just help you survive, especially when you have an increased defense champion, an ally protection champion. And then she comes in with a shield and more heals. That's very useful. Morag. She is a defense-based damage dealer, but she also brings you a lot of utility and extra damage for your allies. Strengthen on all allies, 3 turn cooldown. Great to keep your team alive. Teams up only with 2 random allies, but still, it is an ally attack champion and it is going to help your team do more damage. And grants an extra turn if this kills an enemy. Can be nice in arena, can be nice in wave-based content. And she also has a counter-attack when she's under strengthened. So this is going to mean that War Master is going to proc relatively often. On Clan Boss, it's going to mean that she protects your team and there is extra damage. I'm heavily relying on her on my Clan Boss team. And she unlocked Nightmare Clan Boss for me. I was doing like 8 million damage on Nightmare before, and then she came in and all of a sudden it was 12. Crazy. Just because of the survivability and the extra damage. Runekeeper Dazdurk. Runekeeper. Let's call him Runekeeper. Good turn meter fill on the A2, 25%, and an increased attack, which is nice. And then he removes debuffs from all allies, heals all allies by 25% of this champion's max HP, which is going to be a very decent heal, and places a continuous heal buff for 2 turns on all allies that have debuffs removed. Good champion. Good champion. It's not like he is that typical support giving you one of these typical buffs that you need, but he can be a great addition and gives you a lot of heals and supports your attack-based allies, which is very nice. And then I think there is only one champion left that we really have to talk about in this faction. She is actually a contender for being one of the best epics in the game and one of the best not only supports for Clan Boss in the game, but also for general progression, which is sometimes forgotten, I think. Her overall utility, I think you could compare that to Godseeker Neri. Godseeker Neri is great in early game, great in mid game, and then you can later on use her for soloing content, and you can definitely use her in end game. And Demitha is similar because you can use her generally in early game and mid game, and then she will make your unkillable Clan Boss teams possible. She might just be one of the best or the best Clan Boss unkillable champion. She gives you an increase of ally buffs as well, and the block damage and heals alongside that to get everybody, to keep everybody going, which is absolutely amazing. Aura in all battles and little shield on the A1. She is definitely one of the greatest support champions that we have in this game, because she is generally great and she has very specific use cases. All right. Shadowkin. I think, does everybody like, I guess not everybody, but I think so many people like Shadowkin because of the aesthetics. I mean, look at Taragi. What a great champion. What a great looking champion. And he also has a lot of utility. A great progression champion overall and a great Clan Boss champion as well. Gives you a shield on this champion, so he survives and then places ally protection on all allies on a 3-turn cooldown. Also heals him, and the heal increases from poisons on the enemy. And he also gives you poisons on his passive. When attacked, has a 50% chance of placing a big poison debuff on the attacker for 2 turns. Occurs once per hit. This is very important because on Affinity Clan Boss, the Clan Boss has one attack that does a 2-time hitter AoE and one that has a 4-time hitter AoE. So you will have, just looking at this, from these 2 AoEs, you will, looking at the chances, have 3 big poisons out on the Clan Boss during every rotation. That's what you're going to get from him. Which is decent damage. I mean, that's 300k damage right there every 3 turns on the Clan Boss, which is pretty amazing. He also brings you more general utility, 50% chance to place a provoke. The chance increases by 5% for each debuff on the enemy team. So if you throw out a couple of debuffs on the enemy, that's going to be 100%. That's going to be 100% so super quickly. When you have a couple of debuffers. I mean, just bring, like, you have 5 enemies and you bring decreased attack, decreased defense. That's 100% provoke. Pretty great. 3-turn cooldown, and also a low chance to give you decreased attack on the A1, which can always be nice. It's not amazing, but it can always be nice and just bring you that extra utility. And then we have ally resistance in all battles by 40. So I'm a big fan of Taragi. I think most people are. Little mention to Hotatsu, because he brings you decreased attack, 75% though. We've seen this on a lot of skills, I think. And then we have increased defense on a 3-turn and a continuous heal buff on all allies. You'll know by now I like increased defense on a 3-turn, just because, I mean, it is very useful. He can also be your Clan Boss stun target, because he removes stun debuffs and he has a leech on the A1. low chance, but it brings you extra utility when you might need it. So he's a nice champion. Let's go further through this faction. Burangiri, decent support, I guess. 50%, 60% stun on an AoE, which is nice. 3-turn cooldown, and then he gives you strengthen. This buff can be a bit unusual. Also places a shield buff on all allies with less than 50% HP on a 4-turn cooldown. So the strengthen is nice, even though it's on a 4-turn. He can help your team, and the strengthen being a rare buff, this could really he could slot in well into some teams, and he definitely keeps himself alive because he heals himself by 50% whenever an ally or enemy dies. So he's decent. I wouldn't call him out to be crazy. Kunoichi, decent clan boss champion, but can also give you ally protection on all allies on a 3-turn, and this is pretty crazy. Fills this champion's turn meter by 50%, so this is basically on a 2.5-turn cooldown, which is pretty nice and means that the ally protection is going to be up on your allies very, very often. She brings you a leech on the A2, she brings you weaken or a chance of weaken on the A1. I would very much love to get her on my clan boss team and replace my Verges with her, but then on the other hand, I would love to replace Verges with a lot of champions. So yeah, it is what it is. But Kunoichi, consider her for clan boss. That's what I'm trying to say. Can we just look at the design of Vuji? From Vuji? Vuji's design. I think she looks great. I always love double blades. Alright, I think there's nothing too crazy here. I just have to give an honorable mention to... Oboro can be nice for clan boss, but I need to give another honorable mention to Genbo. Maybe because of the design as well. No, I'm joking. I think he's a 10 out of 10 as well. I think he looks on point. Absolutely great looking champion. And the wings, you know, cut off wings, I guess. I guess that's what these are, cut off wings. But I mean, and the swords. I've had him, I've played with him. He is a decent arena damage dealer, which is why I'm mentioning him. Athlin the Golden. That's the champion that I would very much compare to him, because these two are in the discussion of being two of the best damage dealers, epic damage dealers in the game. They both have very nice kit, and they bring some utility next to just being great damage dealers. That being said, I would say that Athlin probably brings a bit more utility, but I have a weak spot for Genbo. Because I had him, and because his design is on point. Alright, last faction. I mean, this video has been going on for quite some time, so I guess it's good that we are finally here. Alright, let's look at this. Criodan, decent champion. He brings increased speed and fills allies, fills ally turn meter, and then he brings a freeze on a 2-time hit. Each hit has a 65% to place a freeze, which is pretty high. Also freeze on the A1. He definitely comes to mind when you think about Fire Knight, especially Fire Knight hard, because you will need freezes on Fire Knight hard in order to complete that. So he's very strong for that, but he's overall useful as well. Dunedain can be a decent support as well. That being said, he brings a taunt and places a shield on all allies, and that's kind of it. But he increases the duration of all ally buffs for a turn. I didn't remember this. That's interesting. That definitely makes him a bit more decent than I had in mind. I don't see the craziest use cases for him, though, I do have to say. He can be overall decent. Definitely consider him. Look at your roster and see if he might have a use in certain areas, but I don't think he's too crazy. Daithi, great decreased defense champion, great damage dealer. I had him. I'm biased though here again because I had him, and because I had him with a 6-star soul. So he actually, I had this account being relatively endgame, and he was still doing a ton of damage in my arena team. He was in my main arena team. Yeah, so definitely biased there, but he is a great champion. A lot of extra turn mechanics, very strong. Guess Ruella can be mentioned as well, but for support, there is only one more champion that I really want to call out, and that's Nia. She is a bit more of a manual champion though, just because of this skill. Removes all debuffs from a target ally, then heals them by 40%. If the target of this skill is not this champion, sorry guys, decreases the cooldown of all of the target's skills by 2 turns. That's very nice. And if you manual this, then it's always going to land on the champion that you want it to land on, you know? So that's pretty strong, but she also brings you more utility. Ally protection on the 3 turn, also a strengthen buff, small version on all allies. So that's very decent. And whenever this champion is healed, just an extra perk, heals each ally except this champion by 20% of that heal. So she is generally useful, and this, by the way, attacks all enemies, AoE is always nice, and a decreased speed chance can help you in Hydra. So she can be useful in Hydra, but also in other areas. She is a generally useful support, even though this is it's a bit niche. But it's still, even if you put this on auto, it can pick some of your allies back up, and getting a 2-turn cooldown reduction is always nice. Actually, Sylvan Watches was surprisingly quick, in my opinion. There's not too many amazing progression champions in here, I just noticed. I guess Ayla is decent as well. 4-turn cooldown, block debuffs, and heals all allies by 30%. Yeah, not too much to talk about here. And she has an interesting passive, has a 12% chance of activating an instant turn effect on this champion or an ally after using an active skill. So she can be interesting, but nothing too crazy. All right, that completes my epic progression guide, which was a lot of fun. I hope it has been interesting to you. I'm thinking about making 2 more lists about epics. One just looking at aesthetics, ranking the best aesthetics in the entire game. Just looking at epics though. And the other one I'm thinking about, which I'm a bit more excited about, the aesthetics tier list I think is just going to be fun, or might just be fun. The other thing that I really want to look at is which champions. I've talked about a lot of champions, and there were a lot of honorable mentions in here, but I think that I might do a tier list of champions that I really want on my account, and that I'm definitely going to get to 6-star. Me personally. No recommendations, not thinking about team compositions or certain conditions or anything, just champions that I really want to get on this account, and I really want to get to 6-star, like Stag Knight, spoiler alert. I really like this champion. I partially want to get him to 6-star just because he's crazy strong and crazy useful, but also having him in your roster is just nice, I guess, because I like the champion. You know, so I might do a playlist talking about that, but we'll see about that. Anyways, guys, I think I'll cut it here. Video has been long enough. Thank you for watching. I hope it has been somewhat interesting. I hope you have a great day, and I hope to see you on the next video. Until then, bye.